First of all, thank you so much, Kristen. It's a great experience for me to experience the wind for the first time, and you're right, it's addictive. And thank all of you for being here and sharing your wisdom. And like my fellow speaker shared, that we've all got a little taste of some molecules of each one of your wisdom that we are now embodying within us. So my focus today is on leadership. And really what I want to begin with a little bit of my journey, and then I'm going to focus on not necessarily the habits of leadership, but more about the deadly sins that of leadership and how you can redeem them. Because we as women have got very specific abilities of redemption. And I'm going to talk about that in a moment. So, I was born, brought up in India, and, I did my graduation there, went on to live in Saudi Arabia. And it was in Saudi Arabia that I became an entrepreneur, created my first business there at a time when women weren't allowed to work. So created an institute for computer studies for women, and then moved on and moved to London, stayed there for 35 years, and did a whole variety of jobs initially, and then businesses. Became a serial entrepreneur, from a movie producer to technology. Really, what I got known for in the UK was having created an Inspired Leaders Network. And an Inspired Leaders Network were leaders that were causing extraordinary results, and they were doing it time and time again. And I wanted to understand, first of all, what is meant by extraordinary results and how were they doing it? And having the audacity of having created something that we call as the Inspired Leaders Network, because I wanted to learn about leadership, and I thought, what better place to learn than from leaders themselves? Let's gather them together in the form of a network, which I did. We got commissioned by the European Union for a 6-year study of leadership. And in that, I had an opportunity of traveling the world and studying all of these leaders. And about 254 of them, I would say, were qualified as what I called as inspired leaders. And the intention was to develop an Inspired Leaders Index. And the question that I was asked to uncover was, are leaders born or can they be cultivated? And around that time, there was a study that was published about the most inspiring leaders, the top 10 in the European countries. And Britain was right at the bottom. So Department of Trade and Industry came in and said, we want you to develop an Inspired Leaders Index. So there was a context for developing something. Now, what emerged from that was, out of the 258 that I studied in depth and really role modeled, only 54 of them met the grade of being an inspired leader. Many of the 250 you would know the names of, and they did not actually become inspired leaders, as I call them. So before I go into the 7 deadly sins of leadership and how to redeem them, what I want to talk about here is what I uncovered as the difference between leadership and management. Leadership, as a leader, leadership is only about setting and managing context. That's what leadership is about. Management, on the other hand, is about developing and delivering content. So leadership shows you the where to go, and management is, the right way to get there. That's the difference in leadership. Now, what's the difference between good leaders and inspired leaders? What I uncovered was that inspired leaders know that they only have one job to do. And their only job is to create other inspired leaders who can take failure and not give a damn. For them, failure is fast forward. And if failure was one of the key questions in my study, as I was studying these leaders around the world, I would immediately know, no, this person is not an inspired leader. Good leader, successful leader, but not an inspired leader. Now, fast forward, I was doing this work. I was, working with boards of companies, really sharing these 7 habits of inspired leaders. And as I started working with several thousands of leaders around the world, I started uncovering certain things that leaders would do, unbeknown to themselves, that would just destroy all the good that they'd done. And I started, by that time, I'd become a pretty good analyst of observing what was happening. And from that emerged these 7 deadly sins. What I also became aware of is that something was shifting in me. Nothing made any sense, you know. Yeah, I had had all of these successes. I'd also gone through bankruptcy and emerged from it. All of that had already occurred. And now my businesses were on a rise again, and I didn't know why I was doing what I was doing. Anybody looking at me would want my life, and yet it didn't make any sense to me. And one thing led to another. I became very ill and chose to go to Bali for 3 weeks, and I landed up staying there for 9 years. Uncovered the calling of my soul, and I started implementing that, thinking, okay, this is retirement, you know, and my calling of my soul is expecting and accepting miracles as the norm, where a miracle is something beautiful happens that makes your heart sing. And the fact that your heart is beating, that is the song of the heart. So it's only a matter of making the connection. And I started perfecting ways in which you can make that connection. Because your heart is beating, it's singing, your heartbeat is in the moment. Which means if you're in the moment, every moment is a moment of miracle. Right? In the moment, there is no past, there is no future, there is only what is. So if I become an observer of what is, I'm actually in the zone of miracles. So I thought I'd retired, but actually the volcano happened in Bali, and by that time I was speaking at global conferences. I wasn't able to get home for nearly 18 months because I just would get to Singapore and the airports would be shut. So I got the message, Bali is saying, bye-bye, you've got what you needed from here, go out into the world and take it. I came out into the world and I realized that actually there's a need for inspired leadership more so now than there ever was. And it's time to introduce a new business model, which is one of extraordinary results, where unprecedented performance, operational excellence, and transforming quality of life go together. For you as the leader, for your stakeholders, and the planet. Women are particularly adept at that. We are automatically multitaskers. You know, we are automatically collaborators and co-creators. The context in which our leadership is being called to rise is a context of the new world where uncertainty is certain, unknown is the known, change is constant, take nothing for granted is the modus operandi. There's a switch from survival to thriving. There's a switch from sustainable to regenerative strategies. There's a switch from command and control to collaborative co-creation of coexistence. In amidst all of this, when I looked at the 7 deadly sins of leadership and how to redeem them, I felt we as women, we have a unique advantage. And it is true. This is our time, Gloria. Here are the 7 deadly sins, and here's the redemption. There's great depth in all of this. Given the time, I'm just going to go through them and see how much I can get through. The first deadly sin is blame. When a leader engages in blame, they've literally stopped playing the game that they took on. So the redemption to blame is reconnecting to what is the game that you are playing. What is see, every game has a very clear intention. It's unequivocal, it's measurable. So if you find yourself, or if you feel that there is blame going on, then redemption is game. Get everybody reconnected, regrouped around what's the game, what's the intention we have signed up for. The second deadly sin is push rather than share. Pushing our products, pushing our thoughts, pushing our way of doing things is a deadly sin. A sin, remember, I talk about 7 habits of inspired leaders. A habit is something that's just there. It's a habit. You don't have to think about it. It just happens, right? Initially you develop it, but once it's there, it's there. A sin, you can't just drop it. You redeem it, and it's gone forever if you're sincere in your redemption. And that's a gift that we as women have. So rather than pushing, the redemption to push is share. Share, if this intention that we are intending is realized, what's possible? Share the possibility, and people will come and follow you. The third one is content, where leaders get sucked into the content. They lose sight of the context. The entire team loses sight of the context. Redemption is reconnect to the context of why am I doing this? Why am I doing this? The fourth one is attachment, where we get attached to a particular way of doing things, to a particular place something has to be done. Attachment of any kind. However committed your attachment may be, it actually is a deadly sin. A deadly sin is called not just a sin, it's called a deadly sin. It kills the project, kills what you're intending. The redemption is resolve. Get plugged into what is your intention and what am I resolved about to bring forth. And that's the way to deal with that. Then there is one which is about compete, creating a competitive environment. No, that's a deadly sin. The redemption to compete is collaborate. Proactively go for collaborators and co-creators in your team. Encourage that. The sixth one is do. Running the do race, doing. Literally, all you're doing is creating hamster wheels in your team. Hamster wheel for yourself. I've run 3 different hamster wheels at one time, and many times over. It just burns you out. The redemption to that is be. Everybody knows then they have a to-do list anyway. What about creating a be list? How are you going to be today? And just touch base, once every hour to see if you were being that way. It allows you to enjoy the journey. And the final one is bull force. I'm committed to this. It's going to happen by hook or crook, using bull force. We've done it before. We'll do it again. Deadly sin. The redemption to that is joy, ease, grace, omnipresent. Grace is always there. We are a soul being having a human experience. You are full of grace, whether you like it or not. You just have to notice it. So grace is always there. Ease is up to your choice. Hold your thumb, like she taught us, quite easy, Joy is, we've always experienced joy. Start creating a treasure trove of joy. We often would, even now, we have like a JEGO moment in our teams where somebody or the other says, okay, in my treasure trove, I've got this, right? This week, we are actually going to implement this action that gives us joy. It could be anything, For me, it's 24/7 video cam of the Rialto Bridge. Gives me great joy. So if I'm like overwhelmed with anything, I just go to the webcam, and that breaks the pattern. So it's in a very quick and simple way, I've shared with you some of the deadly sins that we can all relate to, and there is a redemption that's there. As women, remember, we have a natural mothering instinct, and redemption comes very, very naturally to us. So let's use the power. This is our time. It is true. And you are the one that you have been waiting for. And the world is calling now for women to rise and step into their leadership. I've taken on, educating, coaching 1 billion women to really develop their inspired leadership skills. So if this is something that you're curious about, get in touch with me. I'll be leading 2 workshops on completely different subjects, because as inspired leaders, you live an extraordinary life where all aspects of life coexist. So anxiousness to awesomeness and romance. Both of those are very important ingredients to add to your inspired leadership JEGO treasure trove. With that, I hand it back to you, Kristen.
Thank you so much, Mynoo.